Hi, I'm Kayla, and today I would like to talk a little bit about business communication issues. So, you may be asking yourself, what exactly is business communication? Business communication is the exchange of information in order to promote an organization's goals. There are many different types of business communication issues that can arise. For example, one business communication issue can be remote working. So right now we are actually going through a global pandemic and a lot of people are remote working, which means that there's a lot of communication that's done through phone, through email, which can also lead to misinterpretation of things. Another example is avoiding conflict. Say that there is an employee who believes that another employee isn't exactly pulling their weight, but they never feel the need to actually tell the person that they feel that way. So then it just blows up and becomes a bigger issue than it could have been if they would have just spoke about the conflict originally from the beginning. Another example are rumors. In a business place, many rumors can fly around. And if these rumors fly around, then it can lead workers to believing certain things that may not exactly be true. So if they aren't cut down by the managers, then it could lead to bigger issues. Another example of a business communication issue are cultural differences in the workplace. We have very diverse workplaces these days, and with that comes other things. Cultural differences in the workplace can lead to employees feeling misinterpreted, isolated, even stereotypes can arise, which can lead to conflict between the employees, which can lead to less communication, which could be an even bigger issue. Another example of a business communication issue is lack of listening. If employees or managers are not listening to each other fully, then there's definitely going to be a misinterpretation and work is not going to be done the way it's supposed to be. So I want to talk about how you can appropriately communicate with language barriers, different types of language barriers, and solutions to handling these language barriers so that there is no miscommunication in the workplace. So some different types of language barriers are one, dialect. So dialect basically means that there are people who do speak the same language, but maybe come from different places, so have different ways of using their language that the other may not understand. Another example of a language barrier are language disabilities, such as stuttering or hearing loss. Another example of a language barrier are industry-specific languages. So say that somebody works in a tech industry and they have to communicate with someone who doesn't exactly work in the tech industry. And they have to figure out a way to maybe use other words to get their point across so that the person understands exactly what they're saying. And another example are people who have different first languages. You may be working with someone whose first language is Spanish, but they do also know English, while your first language is English. So there may be a misunderstanding here or there when communicating if there are words that maybe they don't fully understand. So let's talk about how these issues can cause miscommunication. For one, it can cause despair. If there's a coworker who is constantly trying to get their point across and like people keep not being able to fully understand them, then it will lead to them feeling more upset about it, feeling like they'll never be able to get their point across, which may cause them to start speaking up less. Another issue that can cause miscommunication, I mean, another thing, another issue that can be caused due to this miscommunication is isolation. If an employee constantly feels like they're trying to get their point across and it's not working, or they feel like they just can't have the same conversations with people around them, they may just fully isolate themselves. Another issue is misinterpretation. If you're communicating with someone who doesn't fully understand what you are saying or what you're trying to get across, they may not fully understand the task that you're trying to give them, or just anything that you're trying to tell them at all. And overall, this can just lead to less communication overall from everyone. If everyone is trying to get their points across and there's a misunderstanding here and a misunderstanding there may just be a lot less communication in general. So let's talk about some tips and solutions to solve these issues. For one, be patient and be respectful. You do not want to offend any of your coworkers. It will only lead to further isolation. Another option is considering hiring an interpreter. If you have an interpreter on standby, they can easily communicate both sides of what's happening, which will mean that there is no misinterpretation. Everyone will fully understand what's happening. Another thing is to avoid slang. Everyone has different slang depending on where they come from, who they're around a lot, and all other sorts of things. So just don't use slang, because what means one thing to you, it means something completely different to somebody else. Another thing is to hire people who are fluent in more than one language. If you hire people that are fluent in more than one language, this will make for easier communication, and maybe you won't have to hire an interpreter at all if everyone can bounce ideas off of each other just that easily because you all speak more than one language. Another option is to require employees to go to a language class. This will mean that every employee could learn the basics of what they would need to know to communicate with each other. Another good thing that could help is visual methods. Visual methods will allow people to look, see, and get a visual understanding of what they have to do without even having to talk about it. Something else that could be done is talking slowly. For example, if there is someone who has some sort of hearing loss and maybe they read lips to understand, if you talk slowly, then they could read your lips. And my last solution is to double check for understanding. If you have the person speak back to you or show you an example, then you'll know for sure that they totally understood what you were saying. Overall, it's best to use these solutions for clarity in the workplace. If you use these solutions, language barriers will not be an issue. But if you don't, it could slow down the progression of the company and lead to a lack of communication overall.